So today we're going to talk about holistic health metrics of ML-based product. But let me first quickly introduce myself. So my name is Lina. Right now I work as a lead machine learning engineer at Global Logic. Previously I worked at several different companies. Some of them were product, some of them were outsourced. But all the time in my work I try to focus on automation, stability, and reliability. And reliability is a key concept for my today's presentation. So here is the content. So first, I want to give you a description what are holistic health metrics, give you some examples. Then I want to tell you when it's the most important to use them, and also give you some guidelines how to implement them for your product. First, I want to give you a definition what are holistic health metrics, and I'm going to read it to you. So holistic health metrics, it's a quality monitoring tool that collects metrics at different stages of a ML-based product. So basically, it's a tool that you have to build, use, and support. And ideally, it covers all blocks of your product, therefore it's holistic. And it's gonna help you to assess a health of your product. Therefore, you can quickly react if some problems occurs in your problem, and it's gonna help to make your product more reliable. And I suggest that reliability is kind of a big pain point for machine learning. Well, it's because it's pretty hard to find errors when we have machine learning application. I mean, it's hard to see them. And I talk specifically about the type of error where your application runs smoothly, as there are no exceptions that are raised, but still you receive wrong results. So the output of your application is wrong. And the reason why it's so hard to catch those errors is because we don't have the right answer. Well, because when we do have the right answer, we don't need a prediction model. And some errors are kind of easy to spot. For example, when we have a number that is 2 times bigger than it usually is, well, it's obvious we will see that there's something happening in our product. But when the difference is a little bit more subtle, we may not even notice it. But when we have a metrics tool, it's going to help us to see such problems in our application. Well, it's not going to help you find any problems that you may have in your product, but at least it's going to help you catch some of them. So basically, a metrics tool is a dashboard where it has metrics that are collected from your product at different stages. And using the simple example, we can see that when we have some deviations in metrics, for example, this metric for model prediction, when we have this tool, we will see it. And then we can decide to look deeper, and we may notice that we have some strange behavior in our input data. And if we only can do it when we have this metrics tool. If we don't have it, it's very hard to spot. And I do recommend that you select metrics that are super simple, super intuitive, that is very easy to understand. And if you have some metrics that you already are using, you can also use them. So the good example of such metrics are here. So it's count, minimum, maximum, average, standard deviation, and accuracy for a model or any other loss that you use. And having this metrics tool, it's going to help you to make your product more reliable. And of course, it doesn't mean that when you have such deviations in your data, that it's error. Maybe it's normal behavior, but it's going to warn you that you should check it out. And I want to mention that not everybody needs to build this metrics tool. But I suggest that you think of them as a safety net. Can you work without it? Well, yes. Is it vital? Well, it depends on how far is for you to fall. And when I say how far is for you to fall, I mean that for some industries, such additional safety net could be more important than for others. For example, such domains as finance, health, safety, we don't want to make any errors there. For example, if you have application that predicts person's diagnosis, it's when we have errors in such applications, they can be very costly, and we definitely want to avoid doing them. So when you decide that you want to make this metrics tool, we basically face two questions: is when to measure those metrics and where to measure metrics. So it's basically two-dimension problem. Let's start with when. So we have several options here. The first one is to measure metrics on training, and we always do it, but usually we measure metrics only for a model. But actually, what we can also do is to measure metrics on whole our product, incorporating this new model. And especially, this could be very important when you have two or more models chained together, because when you have two models and you improve one of them, it doesn't mean that the combination of these two models is gonna perform better. The second option is to measure metrics on a regular basis. For example, every day, once per week, twice per week. And the last one is to measure metrics live, meaning after each time prediction is triggered. For example, you have a web application where customer presses a button, make a prediction, and it triggers all your application. Now let's move on to the where dimension. So here is a very basic example of a diagram for machine learning application. So here we have data ingestion block, data preprocessing block, model block, post-processing results that we received from model, and user interface where we return those predictions or the results. And for the question where to measure those metrics, I do want to say everywhere, but it's not correct. But ideally, we want to measure metrics after each main block of our application. Of course, if you don't have, for example, post-processing, you're not going to have metrics over there. And I didn't put metrics after user interface block because usually we don't have any hard calculations there, and usually it's covered by tests. But if you do have something hard happening here, of course, you can put metrics over there. But when you are thinking where to start, I would recommend to measure metrics at the very last stage, because this way is going to work like an integration matrix, meaning that if something works strangely at any of these previous steps, for example, data, preprocessing, model, it's very likely that you're going to see some strange behavior at this last step. Of course, you're going to need to go through and check manually where the problem occurred, but the main point is that you're going to be notified. And then I would recommend to move to data and model metrics, because this is two most error-prone zones. And in my experience, I had an application where like 80% of all errors were caused by some problems in input data. And also, I wanted to mention separately a case when you have two or more models chained together, because for some reason they work like a Bermuda Triangle, and some strange things happen over there. So if you can, it's better to measure metrics after each of your model. And therefore, we have two dimensions, where and when. We have several options for each of them. And we have 12 decisions to make when we want to make matrix design. And this matrix design should be customizable by you. You should select only those that you need. Maybe you're gonna need some additional ones. So you have to make sure that they help you with your product. So here is an example how you can select which metrics to use. For example, suppose we have an application that doesn't have post-processing, or it's super simple and covered by tests, and we decide that we do not need to measure metrics here, so we just don't. Therefore, we have model metrics that work as an integration metrics. And when we take a look at these two blocks on training and regular, we decide to measure metrics after that data injection, because we may have a lot of errors there. Model because it's integration, and also we may have thought that we do not need to measure metrics after pre-processing, but we know that it's currently under development and we have already found some errors over there, so we decide that it's better that we cover all these three blocks with metrics. But for live metrics, we decided for us it's enough just to have the last metrics that are measured for model. And about tools that you can use Elasticsearch plus Kibana visualizations or Grafana visualizations for these two blocks on training and regular. And for line notifications, you can use Slack. It's pretty easy integration, and with Slack you have basically two types of messages. First one is the standard one, and the second is when you can notify all channel if your metrics doesn't look right. And also, I would recommend to use thresholds, so that you do not need to look at your dashboard all the time. So the manual work is going to be less when you have thresholds. And thresholds is something very simple. For example, the metric change more than 20% than the average or than the metrics from the previous day. But when you build metrics, there are some interesting points in there. So I would recommend that you set thresholds later after you already built metrics dashboard and you have already used it, for example, for a few weeks or few months. In that way, you're gonna know your data and you are gonna have some feeling which metrics are in which interval metrics should lie. And also plan to reiterate your thresholds, because it's very hard to get them from the very first time. And remember that it's always a trade-off between false positive and false negative, because if you make your threshold too strict, you may gonna miss some errors. On the other hand, if you make your threshold too weak, you're just gonna receive too many false notifications. I've seen it, and you're just gonna ignore it, and again, you can miss some errors. And also, I have some recommendations on building this metrics tool. So this metrics tool you have to support all the time, and therefore plan plan your work accordingly. Metrics should evolve together with your product. Therefore, don't hesitate to change them. Maybe you will need to add some additional ones or remove others. And especially it's about thresholds. You're definitely gonna need to change them multiple times. And also try to make this metrics tool as easy to use as possible. Therefore, try to collect and display metrics at one easy accessible place, because if it's not easy to use, people may just not use it. And also dedicate time and people for metrics tool adoption. Because unfortunately, when you have only one knowledge transfer session, it's not going to be enough, because the team is always busy. People always have different priorities. And therefore, you have to make sure that people actually have time to learn how to use this tool, even though it's very simple. But still, they have to try to use it and understand that it's really helping them to do their work better. And last one, it's optional, but if you can, it's better to do it, is to assign responsible people to react on alerts. In this way, you make sure that you're not going to miss any errors, and you're sure that people are using the metrics tool, and therefore the metrics tool will be supported. So this is all from me. I hope that after my presentation, you will think about making this metrics tool for your own application, especially if you are from the domains that are more risky. And if you do make metrics tool, I hope it's going to help to make your application more reliable. Yeah, and now we have time for Q&A. So I will answer questions. If you have some additional one, you can write them now. Or if you remember something after, you always can write me a message. Okay. Okay, you can hear me. That's nice. Okay, about microphone. Oh, great session, thank you. Yeah, so the question, beyond the standard count, average standard deviation, what are some examples of more nuanced metrics you may see in projects? I worked in some projects where we have recommended price optimizations, and we needed to see the distribution or a histogram, how we recommend to rise or drop a price. So, but it's hardly depends on your project. Okay. Yeah, what is your favorite visualization package tool? Well, I guess it's Tableau, but it's not free. But Kibana worked fine for us. Yeah. Okay, I think it's all of the questions. If you have any additional ones, again, oh, okay. Yeah, have you used tried probability of model prediction for detecting model health deviance? Well, no, I haven't used it. I actually never worked in health, worked in retail. Yeah, but for in one of my projects, we used also MAPA metrics. Basically, we use the metrics that we used when we were training our model. Okay, I think we can wait one more minute if you have some questions. Yeah, how do you log metrics ML flow? Well, we used ML flow for experimenting, and it is good. But for health dashboard, it doesn't work because it's convenient only when you have metrics for a model and after model training. Therefore, we switched from ML flow. We started to log everything, even training metric. We started to log into Kibana. Do you centralize all of the metrics somewhere like GCS or S3 before visualizing them? Well, yeah. So we stored. So it's better. I think it's better to have some cloud platform to use. We also try to store metrics in BigQuery, but it's not convenient. So therefore, we switch it to storing them at Elasticsearch. Is it good or bad to consolidate different health metrics into one overall aggregate health metrics? It's not bad. Actually, we had this solution where we had not consolidated metrics, and one dashboard with all consolidated ones. For example, and the one consolidated metric that show is it okay or it's bad. So it's not bad. It's more. I think it's more convenient, but it's better if you have the option to dig deeper and investigate the metrics, the raw metrics that you have. Yeah. Can you extrapolate on the Bermuda Triangle in one of the slides when monitoring metrics for multiple models? Well, yeah, I worked at a project where we have two models together, and it was just it was complicated to work with them because actually we needed to make we had a model and we needed to make some optimizations on top of that model, and we needed to optimize one parameter. And when we were training the model, it could give us better precision or accuracy. But when we tried to optimize it, it just didn't learn the parameters that we needed it to learn. So therefore, we understood that it's better to test them all chained together. And when we had some problems with our application, we always didn't know what was the cause. Is it the first model or the second model? Or maybe it's something with the data. Therefore, it's more complicated to work with a project where you have more than one model. So if you have some questions, type them there. I'm working, so the question, I'm working on a project which by the end of this year will have over 1 million models deployed per day. Wow, that's super cool. And I'm curious about any nuggets of wisdom you would provide as we begin to think about monitoring it. Well, I can just wish you good luck. Deployed per day. Okay, so probably, and okay, so if you have the possibility to check the performance, okay, thank you. So yeah, if you have the possibility to check the performance of those models, that's good. I just don't know how it's better is to put it into one dashboard. But yeah, probably you're gonna need to put it into one dashboard, as it was written before, one consolidated, some consolidated metrics, because you're definitely not gonna have 1 million dashboards. Maybe it's possible for you to at least group those models into some, I don't know, classes, so it's easier for you to monitor. Yeah, maybe you can measure average precision for a group of model, but still, yeah, I think it's pretty complicated task you have. Clustering of model monitoring, that makes sense. Thank you. You're welcome. I hope you're gonna manage it somehow. Okay, so I think it's all for questions. If not, you can always write me a message. So again, thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope it was useful for you. And yeah, wish you good luck and good day. Bye-bye.